let's discuss some of the reasons why women may date bad boys. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones, and I've worked with victims of abuse as well as perpetrators of violence for many years. And one of the things that I've noticed is that someone may be a good girl that's dating a bad boy. A bad boy would be somebody with a history of violence, gang membership, a criminal record, maybe into drugs or something like that, but definitely has a lifestyle that is on the fast track and definitely has a record. I want to spend some time talking about, women who date men like that. And a lot of times women will date bad boys because, one, they may want some excitement, but two, I think the bigger reason why a lot of women date bad boys is because they want to feel protected and safe. And so women who usually want to feel protected and safe have a history of trauma and or violence, that they feel like, okay, if I date someone that can physically fight for me and that can physically protect me, then I'll always feel safe and protected at all times. And I talk to you guys all the time for people who follow me. I talk to you guys all the time about doing my dissertation study on women who were psychologically abused while growing up. And I'll give you an example. One of the women I interviewed in that study, a black woman, had been, when she was a child, had been abducted by a white man. He broke in her home in her bedroom window and took her through her bedroom window and kidnapped her for a week. And he returned her back home after that. And, her parents sent her to school. The next day, she didn't get any sort of medical attention or anything like that. And so she kind of went through a long period of, just dating these guys that were, definitely rough and tumble men who, were bad boys. And it was because she never felt safe. She didn't feel safe in her own home. She didn't feel protected by her parents, unfortunately, for many years, because they also never talked to her about the kidnapping and things like that. So everybody just kind of went on business as usual. So she kind of went through life feeling like this desire of, like, I always need to make sure that I feel safe and that I learn how to protect myself. And the way she did that was, of course, through men who could physically fight. If they needed to, they could fight for her, and so that she would never experience, essentially being kidnapped or taken hostage like that again. And so that's one of the moving stories. And I meant to say trigger warning. My apologies about that. But that's one of the ways in where women try to emotionally regulate, and people don't necessarily have the words for what they're experiencing, especially if they never got mental health treatment. They just know that something's wrong and that they always feel afraid. They always feel worried that something's going to happen to them, be it by another man or what have you. And so they want to protect against that. And part of, a big part of security for women, especially if you're in a heterosexual relationship, a big part of, women being with men is to feel, safe, provided, and, provided and protected for, that their person that they're with is always going to protect them, whether it be, walking on the street side of the sidewalk, whether it be from a bad guy, whether it just be from the normal stresses of the world. Women want to feel, protected emotionally and physically by their partner. And that's done through, leadership and validation and showing up in all the ways that a partner will. And bad boys, they check some of the boxes, but not all of the boxes. While they may have love and affection and physically protect her, how does that work if they go to jail or, if they get caught up in some stuff, and that's where the trouble really starts in her relationships, along with a number of other ways. And I think sometimes we want our needs met without always having to communicate them, and just for chivalry, and a man to always know when a woman needs to be protected. And so you could spend a lifetime searching for that in the wrong type of person, but that could be an explanation on why some people tend to do that. Hope that helps.